Hello, innovators. I'm Dustin Miller, PolyInnovator. Today I'm talking with Mitch Gray, the host of The Mitch Gray Show and innovation consultant. Thank you for joining me on the Polymath Polycast.
What is up, Dustin? Good to see you, man.
All in all, it's good to see you too. I'm happy that you're here. I was on your show a couple weeks ago and looking forward to seeing that released. When I was doing the research for having you on, I finally got around to watching the episode with David Lowe. I watched a clip when you mentioned hey, you gave me a shout out. Yes, thank you. But I also was like, I need to watch the whole thing, and that was good.
Yeah, Dave's great, man. I'm sure you have found this with podcasting as well. It's been really cool, the connections you can make, just with perfectly good strangers. And then we talk quite often and we're all networking now. And so, so A, go listen to podcasts. B, be on some podcasts if you're listening to the show. So it's good fun. Dave's a great guy. Great guy.
Tomorrow I'm on 2 different other shows, for example.
Nice.
And so please say hello to the innovators in the audience.
What is up, innovators? Like you said, I'm Mitch Gray. I am drinking sparkling peach water right now, if you're watching the video, and regular water. Yeah,
I got regular water there, and I got Bang, because whenever we were preparing and whatnot, I was like, okay, I'm really tired. Let's get some caffeine.
I feel like we're going to bring good energy to the show, but I feel like when we first started connecting, it was like, okay,
here we are.
Let's go. Yeah.
At least, like you were saying too beforehand, we're both podcast hosts, so there's a quickness to the whole pre-show stuff. Because I like talking to people beforehand and whatnot.
Right.
But we have history already. I was on your show. We talked elsewhere as well. And then on top of that too, like we said, we just both wanted to kind of get in the game anyway, so it's perfect.
Yeah, it's kind of interesting. I've done a very little bit of acting in my past on kind of multiple scales. A little bit of radio, a lot of performing, and then a lot of podcasting. And it is kind of interesting when you really enjoy that stuff. There is kind of a switch that can go on. It's like lights, camera, action. Oh, hey. And you're just kind of is a different persona, which is kind of fun. So I feel like we're both right there, and that's a cool thing.
Well, and going off of that too, I actually done karaoke for many years, and there's a whole persona you have, not only on stage but even off stage too, where you have to kind of listen more like, oh, this is my crowd kind of thing. And then I was telling you beforehand, I teach water aerobics, and no matter how bad of a mood I'm in, something switch is on. I'm like, okay, let's do this. Let's teach.
Let's go.
Yeah. Hello and welcome to the Polymath Polycast interviews and discussions. So how I like to start it is to ask you to share something about yourself that no one knows about you.
Oh, I've heard you do this before. And I remember when I heard you do it, I was like, crap, if he ever asked me that question. Let's see, something that no one knows about me. Okay, I'm going to take a little different spin. Most people don't realize this about me because I am kind of a public figure in the public eye quite a bit, up front and center. I'm actually a really private person. In fact, I think I'm decently good at it because most people that know me don't know much about me, but think they know me. Yeah. And that's what people don't know about me.
Yeah, I resonate with that quite a bit. There's a lot of people who think they know, but I mean, you can't actually really know anyone to a certain degree, but I get what you're saying, where there's a lot of things that you just don't disclose. You never have a need to or want to.
Yeah. Yeah, and it's funny because I'll be with people that I've known for years and years and years, and they'll be like, yeah, I really don't know anything about you or your family. I'm like, exactly.
That's on purpose. So this actually leads me into my next question. Can you tell me a little bit more about yourself?
Sure. So I will give you a real quick lifespan story. I grew up in Oklahoma, small farm town. Started driving a tractor when I was probably 9 years old. My dad was like, okay, son, we have to take this tractor into town. Have fun. With a big trailer full of melons on it. So the goal was to get all the way into town without spilling a melon at 9 years old. That's how it works on the farm. That would never happen today, I don't think. But when I was in middle school, we moved to Gallup, New Mexico, which is up in the Four Corners, Arizona, Colorado, New Mexico, Utah area. I really enjoyed that time in Gallup. Gallup is in the middle of the Navajo Indian Reservation. And when I was a kid, my mom has a sister who is married to a Native man. And we would go to I think it was his grandma's house which was also in Oklahoma, but was a part of the land that the natives there were basically pushed off to. So a lot of the houses were still really old. You had to go to the outhouse. There was no electricity. You'd wake up in the morning, making sure you could move the scorpions off the bed, that type of fun stuff. But I really fell in love with the indigenous culture as a white kid from a farm town. And so when we moved to Gallup when I was in middle school, man, that was a really great experience for me because I got to know the native culture a little better. And so I value even, you know, gosh, it's been 25 years, I guess, since I graduated high school. I really value that experience to this day. Yeah, I had our first kid when I was right after I graduated high school. We got married, moved to Texas. I went to seminary. All I wanted to do since I was 10 years old was be a preacher. And so the only way I believe you interpret dreams based on your perception of the world at that moment in time. Okay. My perception was very much church and Christianity, and my family was in church anytime the doors were open and serving church, et cetera, et cetera. So at 10 years old, I was like, yeah, I'm going to be a preacher. Like, that's what I want to do. So I went to seminary, got out of that. The seminary I went to was 8 hours a day, 5 days a week for 2 years. Man. It was basically a 4-year bachelor's degree in 2 years time. And so I was burnt, man, by the time I got done with that. So I went into retail just to kind of support my family and have a job. 6 months later, I was running a $2.5 million store with this company I was with. Did that for about 5 years, went back into ministry, got fired from a job that I absolutely loved. Oh, wow. And that kind of messed me up, man. It messed up, you know, my dream was so attached to that perception. Yeah. And when you get that removed from you out of your control, it becomes very interesting. And that took me probably 10 or 12 years to really recover from. So yeah, after that was probably 2005, 2006, my dad and I started a couple of businesses together. That's kind of when I got into consulting and coaching. I had done a lot of spiritual mental health coaching. And when I got burned from church work, that was the second time I'd gotten burned from church work. I was like, forget it, I'm done. Mm-hmm. So that was when I really started looking at the idea of doing some personal development coaching, leadership coaching, because I thought I had a lot of assets that most traditional business coaches didn't have. Right. I really brought to the table the spiritual, emotional aspect, but also the business experience. And so yeah, in 2011, in 2008, when the economy crashed, my dad and I closed one of our businesses. In 2011, we closed another one of our businesses. Oh, wow. I went middle of 2011 to middle of 2012, and I could not find a job. I could not find a job anywhere. I was either overqualified or didn't have the right qualifications, which was really an interesting experience because it started helping me understand more about business leadership and how asinine and archaic our structure is of how we hire people. So that's when I really started in business for myself. Currently, I actually work in public health as well. I have a contract with the state of New Mexico. We work with schools and do some physical activity and healthy eating type education. Right now, we're actually doing a lot of work on the COVID, getting schools back in session and stuff. But then I also own a company called Shift Culture Consultants, and we work on leadership development. And really our passion is how are people developing their people? Something I always hear people say is, well, we can't find quality people. Right. And my response always is, no, you can find quality people. You don't know how to develop quality people. And so that's kind of our niche right now. We really enjoy working with small businesses because I think they kind of get left in the dust. In fact, I had someone message me the other day about kind of sharing some of my knowledge and experience with mom and pop businesses. Those are really the backbone of the world, I think, are mom and pop shops, small business. But they're also the businesses that get left out in the cold. Everyone focuses on corporations, and small business was here long before corporations were, and I think they'll be here long after. So I have 3 wonderful children. One of them is in Japan, my oldest. My son plays football at the University of New Mexico, and then my youngest just graduated high school, so we'll move her in the fall. And so, I've been married for 24 years now, I guess, something like that. And so, living life, story. Man. Yeah. It just gives you the 5 minute span. I'm also a musician. I'm an award-nominated songwriter, and thank you. Interesting story I'll get into later about that as well. So life has been good, all in all. It's been good, man. Well,
and what's interesting is that I stole that question there. Can you tell me a little more about yourself from Shift's blog?
Mm-hmm.
I don't know if you
Thank
caught
you.
that or not, but yeah, I was like, wanted
Yeah.
to make sure I could
Yeah.
shout that out. It's interesting too because like I resonate with you when it comes to getting jobs. There's certain
Mm.
points where you can get jobs really easily depending on the time of year, and then there's other points where no matter how good you are, you can't seem to get a job. I
Right.
always thought the idea of being overqualified was stupid. Have that person. Who cares if they quit in a year? You have them for a year. You have someone who's overqualified who can not only innovate the position but also do it really well. And so if they leave in a short time span, then oh well, get someone new. You're gonna have to get someone new anyways. You might as well have them. Or if they end up staying, they end up becoming a valuable asset.
Yeah, we're in this weird bridge time of modern world, and especially in America. The weird bridge is we came from an archaic system that said, well, you get a job, you work 30 years, you retire.
Mm-hmm.
And people thought that was valuable, and it was for that time. Now all of a sudden Google came along and said, oh no, you've been at a job 5 years, that's too long, you don't know very much. So all of a sudden these big companies who wanted not just up and coming people, but they wanted people with a lot of assets. They didn't want limited perspective. And so now we're in this weird bridge time where some companies are still saying, well, Dustin, you're overqualified, I can't hire you. Whereas some companies are saying, wait, you were at one job for 10 years, you have
Yeah.
limited perspective and limited skill. And it's tough to find where we fit. That's why I'm a fan of being an entrepreneur. I can control my settings, I can control my output, I can control my input. It's a lot of hard work. The myth to being an entrepreneur is that you're going to make a lot of money and you're going to do it quickly. The facts to being an entrepreneur is you are the source, and it's easy to burn out, and that's why a lot of people have to give it up. And so but in our kind of working with clientele in the business world, what we always try and tell them is don't worry about qualifications, don't even worry about education, just hire the right person for what you need done.
Mm-hmm.
You can educate them, you can give them the qualifications over time, don't worry about all that stuff. And so we're trying to, and it's not just us, there's a lot of conversation about shifting and rotating everything on its axis of saying, okay, all the stuff that you valued before, just worry about hiring the right human that believes in your culture, believes in your company, everything else can come. But when you're
Right.
dealing with an archaic, large system, that's a very difficult thing to bring to the table.
Well, and you were kind of mentioning entrepreneurship, and I've also kind of alluded that entrepreneurs are almost like the polymaths of our time. But
Mm-hmm.
it's really that like these companies are not wanting that they want you to have some kind of major skill, obviously kind of being like a pillar, like a college
Right.
degree all of the time. Although in recent years they've been proving that having a degree does not mean you actually know that skill per well.
Right.
But
Right.
they usually want that one pillar, and then they want you to have a wide range of stuff. Like you said, oh,
Mm-hmm.
5 years, 10 years is too long. You've only had that one particular pillar, maybe one other one beyond that. They want you to have multiple, a width
Right.
of knowledge, so that way you could be like a jack of all trades and eventually become a polymath for that company.
And I think what's happening is I think that's why contracted workers are really growing, which is what ties directly into being an entrepreneur. I've met multiple people over the last 3 or 4 years that literally their full-time job is contracting with companies.
Hmm.
And so they'll actually scout and scope out companies that are looking for a social media expert. And so this person will send in a proposal and say, hey, why hire a person? Why put the money into training them when you can contract with a person, not have the headache of hiring someone, not have the liability, and still get the job done or even better?
Yeah.
And that's happening a lot. And corporations are actually shifting that way a little bit because it lessens liability. It lessens, the greatest investment companies have is training people. And so now all of a sudden you're removing all of that. And so, yeah, I agree with you. I think we're in a day and time that entrepreneurs are starting to take the power from these large companies. And, and then you have people like Gary Vee, who, Gary Vaynerchuk, for those that don't know, who, has totally spun the system on its head.
Yeah.
And he's teaching against the archaic educational system, and he's teaching against the archaic corporation system. And he's able to say, look at me, I'm doing it. It's going to take more people like him to really, Damon John is another one of the founders of Fubu back in the day. Same type of situation. And Mark Cuban, owner of the Dallas Mavericks, same situation. So the more we get these people that are influencers to pull in, the more leverage it's going to give us.
Yeah, and it's interesting that you mentioned Gary Vee too. He often inspired a lot of the stuff I do, but that's also kind of what I'm trying to do with the modular degree through PolyInnovators, to try to change how people approach education. Now, actually getting into the questions here, because we had that nice tangent
I
there,
love
which is
it.
always
I
fun.
love it.
So how do you like to start off your morning? Getting dressed, making your bed, drinking water? What comes first? How do you achieve a successful day?
Yeah, so the word morning to me is relative. And I think you and I were actually conversing on this via
Yeah, Twitter or
social media
something.
the other
Yeah.
day. I don't remember what, but yeah, that was such an interesting conversation. I am what most people would term a night owl. The idea you and I were talking about when it comes to chronotypes was a wolf. I'm actually kind of an intermediate a little bit. I'm not the guy that's going to stay up till 3 a.m. and work, but I definitely find my optimum capacity in the evening, or later at night. So my ideal world, I get up about 8 o'clock. Notice I
Yeah.
said my ideal world.
Yeah. See, that's the same thing for here.
Yeah, I would get up about 8 o'clock and I feel decent. I don't ever feel great in the mornings. I don't usually eat breakfast. I'll sometimes drink a smoothie. And it's just, in learning those chronotypes, that's just kind of how we're wired. I do make my bed. I didn't for a lot of years. I started doing it just because basically everyone said I should. I have no real valuable reason. And it is, it is kind of nice, but I have this theory that I'm going to sleep in it again anyway. So I don't know. It's kind of weird. I felt bad because my kids started making their bed. That's honestly what
Yeah.
changed it. I'm like, okay, if my kids can make their bed, I should probably be responsible.
I'm using a sheet now because it's so hot, and like I'm not gonna make my
Yeah,
bed for a sheet. I'll make it for a blanket, but not for a
right.
sheet.
Yeah, it's just kind of weird. So that's kind of I've tried working out in the mornings. I perform horribly.
Yeah.
I don't get coffee first thing in the morning. I usually wait a little bit. I will drink some water. So that question for me, I'm probably not your best case study.
No, but it's interesting because I mean, I don't get to talk to too many night owls, especially ones who have to wake up early in a more professional sense. And so, like, yeah. And one thing I've learned is that if you could optimize that water that you mentioned in the morning, you could actually make a big difference. So, for example, apple cider vinegar is a great way to like improve your digestive system, wake up the
Right.
body. So you get lukewarm water, put some lemon juice in there, honey, and apple cider vinegar.
Right.
Doesn't taste great, but it makes you feel so awesome.
Yeah, my granddad was always an apple cider vinegar guy. I can't get past the smell, man. Yeah.
Shoot it
But
down.
I will say what helps me to kind of answer your question directly.
Yeah.
I'm this weird balance of a routine guy, but I'm also spontaneous. I'm really only routined because it's how I keep myself self-disciplined.
Yeah.
I'm not by nature a routine guy. I don't drive to work the same way all the time. I'm the guy that'll drive 15 miles out of the way because I get bored, a little ADD. But in the mornings, I definitely have to go through my routine or it messes up my day. So it's, brush my teeth, then shower, then do all my stuff. And if I don't keep that in order, it messes me up a little bit. And, I think all of us are that way in some form or fashion.
Yeah, I think I could do better with that routine. It's almost systems in place too, if you want to talk about habits. You said something there that interested me. I was going to see if I can bounce off of it, but I can't remember off the top of my head now. I lost it because I try to work so hard at active listening because that's a skill for as you know as a host.
We're gonna talk about that.
Yeah, and then I just completely blanked there. But so going off a little bit, your YouTube is quite diverse, and so it seems like you're niching down quite a bit now that you've kind of been defining your personal brand, your show. How do you think about that interdisciplinary content?
So there's kind of forced purpose behind that. I'll go back to my music story. So I've been doing music since I was probably 7 or 8 years old. I wrote my first song at 13. I started touring when I was 15. Up until about a year or two ago, we were playing about 80 shows a year. And that was just part-time. And so we really, music is one of I have 3 passions in life: speaking, teaching, writing, and music. I put speaking, teaching in the same, but those are my 3. They have been since I was literally 9 or 10 years old. Last year, I lost my singing voice. They don't know why. I had another appointment actually week after next. And so it's been a weird thing. I've had to talk a lot today after doing your show. My voice is already feeling pretty rough. And those that know me well, if you've watched a lot of my videos, you'll probably hear a little difference today in it just because I've had to talk a lot this week. So there's issues there that they can't figure out. I bring that up to say the reason you see such diversity in my YouTube channel is we pretty much have stopped playing music. And so when you scroll down to maybe a year ago, 2 years ago, 4 years ago, it was all music, some podcasting. And now it's pretty much just podcasting, teaching videos, etc. And so that's really, it's been a forced narrowing. If I was still playing shows and stuff, you would still get the cool, concerts and tours in there, but we're not. And so it's kind of been nice in a way. I never found diversity to be an issue. To be honest, I'm kind of one of these guys, and I had a coach that was working with me a few months ago. He's like, Mitch, you got to narrow down. You got to narrow down. And my first question was, why? Like I kind of get where you're coming from, but is that based on your fear of being too wide, or that you don't have any of the skill set? Like, are you frustrated? Like, are the narrow down people frustrated because some people have more skill set and interest? Like, I get it on one side of the coin, but on the other side, it's weird.
It's more technical than that, from my experience.
I think so. Yeah.
And so it's the SEO for YouTube, for example. And so if you have too many niches, the AI or algorithm doesn't know how to set you in stone, so to speak.
Right.
And so that's why when some people niche down, like, oh, I'm only this game for video game streamers, or I'm only doing this kind of music, they're able to grow a lot faster. Both of our channels have great content, but we don't have as many subscribers. But I'm sure there's plenty of people who've seen your stuff. It's just a matter of like being able to grow on the platform, that kind of thing. And that's why they often say niche down, because they want you to focus on YouTube. Right. I hate it when people say niche down.
And this is probably one of my weaknesses. I don't care. I know what SEO is. When we were designing our new website for Shift, I was like, no, y'all got to deal with that. When I write my articles and publications, I don't worry about using certain words. And I've had writing coaches say, you got to use certain words. I'm like, no, I'm writing organic, authentic stuff. If you need to edit it and change it, and sometimes editors do, I'm fine with that. But music is the same way. I'm also the guy that, when we toured, we played all original music, and that hurts us. That's why we're not further ahead than we are.
Yeah.
But I'm going to do what I do. And if that costs me money in the end, I'm okay with it, because I know at the end of the day, I've done what I love to do. And I think too many people sell out of that.
Well, just also thinking of it alternatively, it's not as selling out, but more just trying to work the system in your favor. So it's kind of like adding hashtags to a tweet. If you want that tweet to be seen for, let's say, a podcast or something like that, you want to have those tags in there so the engine knows where to put that tweet. And so when you do the SEO, that's essentially what you're doing there, is trying to, you don't have to put that many words. Honestly, if you want to do self-development or something like that, try to get it in your title if you can. If not, okay, put it in your excerpts, put it a couple times in the body somewhere in the paragraphs, and I think that's good enough for the most part, as long as you're trying to get that in there without having to like really work it in,
Overdo it. Yeah. And some people really overthink it. And I'm just like, look, man, I'm just creating. So that's kind of the answer to my YouTube channel. It's kind of been a forced thing. And honestly, it'll probably stay more narrow like it is now. You look back probably the last year or so. It's all podcasts. It's all inspirational stuff. It's all the business coaching, leadership stuff. And that's what it'll be more, definitely more of. So for sure.
And I think that you're still not necessarily niching down. You're just focusing on a different type of content. So it's not necessarily like a specific subject niche. It's more of this like content type niche. Which I think
really what I did is remove part of the content I was putting in, and that's the music stuff. And I honestly thought I was like, I should remove all that. And I'm like, no, that's a part of my story. Like, I want people to see that. And besides that, I still get streams and downloads from it. So I'm like,
Well, yeah, and that's a lot of people say to remove it or something like that because of you want to be known for one thing. But like, no, respect your polymathic history and whatnot. And on top of that too, that's more content to get found by. And I actually did the same thing with the Polycast. So I started out podcasting with my previous endeavor brand with the United Living Construct, and it's essentially the same stuff that we're talking about. So I kept it around, and then I had a micro podcast, like a fireside one, where we're supposed to be like a small personal solo cast. And then it was separate from my main show. And I was like, why? Why is it separate? Why am I starting over with this new one when I have a whole backlog of episodes? So I moved them all onto my new host when I started my second season. I was like, okay, 42. That's actually what cost me to start a second one. That's just like, okay, I have enough here. Let's do it. And so, I get you.
Well, it's funny. I kind of get the same question with my podcast. 2020. So I've had my podcast for about 5 years. We rebranded about 3 years ago, maybe 2.5. 2020 was my year to only have guests. I used to only have guests every once in a while. And I had someone kind of mention, they were like, yeah, you kind of just get strange guests. I'm like, I just want people. Like I'm not going to put people, that's just my style. When we talked about yours, you kind of look for more of a specific, and people have their different way. But my thing is, I want to tell the story of humanity. because if I have country music artist Will Bannister on, he has a story that'll relate to somebody. When I have you on, you have a story that'll relate to somebody. When I have Dave on from the UK who came over and lived in Texas, he has, all these people have something to bring to the table. And my overarching goal as a human is to bring unity among humanity.
Yeah.
That ties into leadership development. It ties into podcasting. It ties into music. It's just all about unifying. And so that's why I find a lot of joy in diversity. That probably relates to the material you put out, because my brain just doesn't work in single modes. My brain goes, like right now, I'm thinking of new ideas to write about, and I just constantly. And I remember being a kid in elementary school and working on math, thinking about English, or and it wasn't just I can't sit still. It was just that's how my brain functions, and the more we can settle into that, the more advantageous it is.
I think so too. And for example, the other day I was driving with my dad and my sister, and there was a whole bunch of stuff on the windshield, and like my windshield wipers weren't strong enough to really get it off. I'm like, oh, I'm gonna have to clean the windshield, and he's like, oh, give it 30 years, you'll stop noticing it. And it's like, yeah, I can focus past it. I get what you're saying there, but I literally can't ignore that windshield there when I'm driving. I see the spots, even if I see it in front of me as well. And then on top of that, you're talking about unity is kind of your goal. That's actually what the previous brand I worked on, the United Living Construct, was about. World unity through self-development. So I think that you'd like that.
Yeah, definitely.
Going back to your content, I looked down. It's like you went from covering Ain't No Sunshine to talking about the art of business. How do you think about that has evolved?
I don't know that it's evolved from a content standpoint. Again, I think it was a little bit forced because I didn't have a choice.
True.
And so because when I did first start my YouTube channel, it was all about the music. That was my way to try and put the music out there more. And so that was the genesis of my YouTube channel. So yeah, when it came to the decision to really kind of do what I could do right now, which isn't sing and play as much, but it is develop content and do videos and podcasting, I'm like, yeah, I'm perfectly okay with that, So I don't know that it's evolved a lot. I think it's just a part of who I am and a part of my story. And I think that video, Ain't No Sunshine, I think I was at a coffee shop in Lubbock, Texas, if I remember properly. So I think those cool experiences are a part of the story, Yeah.
Well, and what's interesting is I think this is what I was actually thinking about earlier that I mentioned, is that there was a quote that I really like from a show called A Legend of Korra. Really nice show, good philosophical episodes. And one thing they said in one episode is that when you hit your lowest point, you're the greatest subject to change. Like you're most open to change. And I think that's what happened to you when something happened to your voice. You're like, crap, this is like my main tool that I wanted to use for this.
Right.
And now I have to find some way to adapt.
Yeah, it's forced change is the most humbling because it's totally out of your control, and it hasn't been easy. And like I said, I've been singing and doing music since I was a child, and it's to be honest, I'm still not settled with it yet. We still have band practice. We're actually working on a new album right now that I wrote for almost 2 years ago, and we're just now, because we have a new vocalist in and everything. And to be honest, music has always been my healing place. It's always been my serenity, and what was my healing place has now become my point of frustration.
Yeah.
And that's been an interesting thing to deal with. And so yeah, it's just when that change is forced upon you, it causes you to deal with those shadows that you either didn't recognize or didn't want to deal with. And which there's growth that comes from it, but it's not easy.
And pivoting kind of basically from what you said earlier today too about the dreams, is that your singing was your kind of your, what's the word I'm looking for, solace and your overall happiness, so to speak. And it was your dream, and it was affected in a negative way. So you have this philosophy that I noticed of the dreamer's mind. What is your dream now?
Really my dream for music in particular has always been to write. I'm a songwriter before I am anything else. And then that's my dream with music has always been to sell my music. And so we're working on that. And when I say sell music, I mean write music and sell it to other performers and artists. So that dream is still the same for the most part. My overarching dream in life is at its core fundamental to simply inspire people to live more deeply. I think we get caught in the rat race of life and we live very shallow. We're okay with me just kind of knowing who Dustin is and not really being the one that can be there and be like, look, dude, I know something's up. Your energy's off today. Like, we're really scared of those connections. But if we could just imagine for a moment, what if we could elaborate on those connections? And what if everyone could live at this level of awareness and this level of energetic, interaction that would totally change the game of humanity? And we're sitting in the middle of it in America right now with what's happening. What's happening is one specific race of people is simply asking all the other races of people to become more aware. Like, that is the gist of what's happening. But when people aren't used to being more aware, they get defensive, which is what breeds violence. And so that's what's happening. And ever since I was a kid, I just wanted, my mom tells a kind of embarrassing story. She would say, Mitch, when you were a kid, you would always want to share your toys. And if someone wouldn't receive what you were sharing, it would make you cry. And that's always been my heart. My heart has always been for the betterment of others. And so that's why I write books. It's why I do consulting. It's why I do music. That's the overarching thing. When we do a show for music, I want people to leave there feeling better than they did when they came in. When I used to preach full time, feedback I wanted is people to feel better or think deeper than when they did when they came in. And that's always been my dream. That dream has never changed. Everything else is just a manifestation of the dream, which helps the healing. When something is taken from you, you can go, okay, that manifestation may not be there anymore, so it's going to come in another form. And so it's just about being open to that. The dreamer's mind is actually inspired much by Thich Nhat Hanh, who we both have an adoration for, and kind of the way of Buddhism a little bit. The dreamer's mind is this idea, it's in relation to the beginner's mind, which is a childlike mind. And everyone, when they're a child, has a dream. Everyone has a dream. Whether it was to be a cowboy or a nurse or a preacher or a podcaster or a singer, everyone has a dream. At some point, that dream stops, not because we can't, but because we're told we can't. And so in 5th grade, the kid that wants to be an NFL football player is all of a sudden told, well, only 1.001% of people that play football go to the pros. He's told he can't. Instead of saying, yeah, you can do anything you set your mind to. So let's figure out how to give you the best chance possible. That's the dreamer's mind. When people have permission, they become empowered. What we do is we rob the permission from our children, and then it becomes impossible. And that's the dreamer's mind.
Yeah, and you kind of mentioned how Gary Vee often tries to help people accomplish their dream, manifest their dream. So I think what the next question I'll ask then is, I'll share my dream, I'll ask about your dream, and then I want to know, how do you manifest a dream?
Yes.
So for example, when I was growing up, I would tell people I wanted to be a businessman or CEO as I get older. And then the actual deep part of it was a CEO of an international company driven to innovate technology and ideology. That was always my dream. I still think that I'm going to achieve it one day. I haven't been pushed down enough because I was like, okay, I won't do it now, but I'll just do it later. I had that kind of growth mindset involved. What is your dream then, deep down?
My dream is exactly what I just said. To literally, I want to see people living so I view life as an ocean. We can swim in the shallow water. We can swim in the deep water. I want to see people swimming in the deep water. I want to see people going, okay, yeah, I don't have that perspective. Can you teach me your perspective? That living deeply, that seeking that emotional, spiritual, mental intelligence is where I want to see people living. Because when we can live there, and when we can walk alongside each other and together live there, it solves the problems that we deal with. Someone says, well, I want to solve world hunger. Okay, you don't just buy food. That's the manifestation of the problem. That's not the problem. I want to end some disease. Okay, well, we need to back up and figure out what's really happening. And so when we can live on that deeper level, it really starts solving the issues that we deal with.
Well, and one thing when you mentioned the ocean analogy is that it reminds me of the Blue Ocean Shift book, where in business, there's these blue oceans and red oceans. If you're in a red ocean, all the sharks have come to the water and ate up all the customers, so to speak. But then there's the blue ocean, where if you focus on that, that's an untapped market that you can go into. And what I want to do is cultivate innovators, which is why the audience is called Innovators, to be able to find those blue oceans. I want to try to inspire them to do so that we can make a change, #make a change, and in that kind of mindset. So I think we're both both aligned on that. So how do you manifest a dream?
I think that ties in with passions. So I believe that people are given a dream as young people. I think those dreams are real when they're young. I want to be a nurse. Okay. Normally that dream is connected to a passion. So if you see someone that says at a young age, well, I want to be a nurse, you're probably going to see a caring person, someone that looks out for the well-being of others, someone that really wants to see others heal. And when they're hurt, they go and they put an arm around them and take care of them. Their passion is the well-being of people. And so when we're talking about manifesting the dream, what we're really talking about is how to bring our passions to light. For me, my passions are, again, speaking, teaching, writing, and music. And really the music is also tied in with the writing part. So every time I sit down to put material together or to create something new or to write an article or to write a new book, I'm thinking about the idea of how is this going to better humanity? How is this going to cause this business leader to entertain a different perspective? Let's go back to the example we mentioned earlier. Mitch, I can't find quality people. I can't find good people. I can't keep people. Everyone quits. Okay, can I offer you a new perspective? The new perspective might be it's not a them problem, it's a you problem.
Yeah.
And so then that becomes my passion for helping people, just allows me to manifest in a variety of areas. I think sometimes where people get confused is they go, I have a dream and there's only one way to go about it. No, there's never one way to go about anything.
Yeah.
There's millions of ways to go about it. And those paths are directly connected to passion.
Yeah, and I mean, just to kind of go off the example I gave earlier, is that I wanted to create the United Living Construct as a way to unify people and find those innovators. It's supposed to be a hub of innovation. I realized that I wasn't good enough. And so when I was trying to create it, I knew that the path that I wanted to take, that I was trying to take, wasn't going to work. Maybe if I kept pushing at it for a long time, something like that. But I felt that by pivoting, by trying to manifest the dream in a different way through PolyInnovator, a personal brand, I was able to accelerate that change, at least on the time scale that I was visualizing.
Right. So you're still sticking with your passion, just learning that there may be a different path. And the other thing, I was actually talking to someone about this last night. You know, we have these goals, and sometimes the goals are overarching and large and massive, like a dream. And we feel like, okay, there's this path to get to this goal. But sometimes what we forget is there may be a path to get to the path that gets us to the goal. And so it becomes really overwhelming and becomes very frustrating. That's when frustration sets in. It's like, I have this overarching dream or this goal. I want to start a new business. I love baking cakes. I want to start a bakery. Okay, so step back for a second. Don't lose sight of that. But what's the path that's going to get you to the path to get you to the goal? So the first thing may be like what you had to do. You had to relearn or learn some new things before you can step back into that. That path is going to lead you to another open door, which is going to lead you to another path. And so it's the idea that there's no straight way up to the mountain. And sometimes we think there's a path and the lightning strikes and knocks a tree down in our way. So now we have to discover another way. That flexibility and fluidity, which, by the way, I think is a very sacred act of being human, is having that flexibility and that fluidity to adjust.
So even before you just said that last sentence, that I think is powerful for people to listen to, what you were saying was making me think heavily of Taoism and going with the flow, going with the way of the universe, as you could say. And a lot of people see that as kind of floaty, but if you can really just take a step back, try not to waste your mental energy on making decisions or trying to think that you have control, the illusion of control, you end up finding that there's a lot more stuff going on that you didn't see before. And you're able to find a new path, or rather just a way of being, a way of going without thinking of a path. Like if you try to define it, try to control it into a path, then you might not actually go down it very much. But if you just go along it without thinking about it so much, you experience it a lot more.
Yeah, people think it's floaty until you take them to a river that carved out the Grand Canyon.
Yeah. So
and then it's like, oh, maybe it's not so floaty. You know, it's the old saying. I think this is actually maybe I don't know where it came from, but it's the saying: the mountain is a mountain and the river is a river until the river is no longer a river and the mountain is no longer a mountain. And that's exactly what we're talking about: is we are who we are until we need to be someone else. And that's okay, because that's just being adaptive to what's happening.
So something you talked quite a bit about is empowering others and coaching them. How can we go about doing those things? How can we show them new things?
Yeah, the first step is permission. So many of us have dreams. Some people don't. Some people have been their spirit has just been stamped out, whether it's because of family situations or life or whatever. To give someone the permission to say, Dustin, man, yeah, you want to do that. I believe in you. I know you can make it happen. And not only that, but I'm here to support you. What can I give you to help? That may be verbal support. It may be monetary support. It may be idealism. It may be a conversation. It comes in all types of ways. But the power of permission is the first step to empowerment.
Yeah.
Because until someone if you just tell someone what to do, that's not empowerment. That's servanthood. So until you can give someone that permission, if you have, back in the day, I learned this when I was training people to become managers when I was running business. And it's like, I learned the hard way that until I give them permission to actually think on their own, they're never going to think on their own, because they're running from an authoritarian and fear-based system that says, you're the boss, I'm not, I have to do what you tell me. And so to learn the art to go, no, you have your free mind, you have your free choice, you know the business, I've taught you well, now think on your own. What would you do? That's the first step to empowerment.
What's interesting is that I was just thinking how I've always been kind of anti-conformist, and I've gotten in trouble for not respecting that power dynamic.
Right, yes, same. Same.
So this is kind of going off of both of what the last kind of question we talked about and this past one. How can we keep taking one more step forward? How can that management trainee or something like that take that step forward, or any example you like?
Yeah, so let's just go back to that example. Managers training person to become assistant manager or to take over their own store or to run their own business or whatever. It starts with that power permission, but then it actually continues through that. You have to confirm that permission every day. You can't just say, oh, it's your store, go for it, run it how you want. Because normally what happens then is managers see something they don't like and they want to correct it. But you've put that person in an unfair situation. And I learned that the hard way too. I'll tell a story real quick. This is when I learned the power of permission and how to not do it. It was when I was in high fashion retail running that store, and I had an assistant manager, and I said, hey man, I've got to leave for the night. If you guys can just merchandise this one wall, here's the brand we want up, blah, blah, blah. And he's like, so I can do whatever I want? I said, I trust you, man. You can do whatever you want. So I come back the next morning and I didn't like the wall he merchandised. So guess what I did? I changed it.
Oh no.
He comes in that night and he goes, what happened to my wall? And I was like, I didn't like it too much. I wanted something different up there. And he goes, but you told me I could do anything I wanted. I said, yeah. He goes, I'll never merchandise a wall for you again. That dude was with me for 2.5 more years. One of the greatest assistants I ever had. He never merchandised a wall for me again. And I learned right there in that moment, I either need to set up better parameters or truly let my people do what I know they can do. What I found is when you trust people, the way you earn more trust is to say, Dustin, merchandise that wall, man, you'll do a great job. And whether it's right or wrong, you leave it, because people aren't stupid.
Yeah.
Leaders won't let people learn from their mistakes, and they have to make mistakes. And that's that second step, is giving them permission, but then empowering that permission to say, I know you're not stupid. It's okay. Let's go over it and we'll get it right next time. It's okay.
What's interesting is that something happened like that to me recently, where I was making a website for somebody. I made 2 of them actually. The first one just didn't actually connect with the domain. It was a long story, but both of them were really nice, but the marketing copy wasn't there. It's a skill that I'm still learning myself. And I mentioned multiple times, like, hey, we can just refix it. Like, it's not that hard to change text.
Right.
And I eventually woke up one day to the site being edited and essentially almost deleted, and then like being replaced. And I'm like, okay, they could have talked to me about it. Could have just literally, like you said, literally came in the next day. And it was completely changed. Yeah.
That will destroy the soul of your people. Mm-hmm. If you're that kind of leader, not you specifically, but anyone, if you're that kind of leader, and most of the time, the funny thing is when I look at companies that have high turnover, the response you always get from the employees is the leaders don't trust me. Yeah. They don't trust me to do my job. And so I believe one of the best ways you can lift morale among your people is give them freedom, give them autonomy, and give them the opportunity to actually use their wisdom, knowledge, and experience, and let the mistakes happen. Years ago, John Maxwell wrote a book called Failing Forward. Mm-hmm. Not a major John Maxwell fan, but that was a great book. And it was a great book because it talked about in leadership, we have to help people fail and fall forward. And that's very true.
Well, and without that failure, you can't learn. Like, sure, you can try to teach somebody, but it's not going to be the same.
No, no. The greatest teacher is experience.
It is. And one of the best ways actually to learn experience is by reading and learning from the experience of others. So someone
Yeah.
we both mentioned earlier, we both share the love of Thich Nhat Hanh. Which one of his ideologies do you resonate with most?
Of Thich Nhat Hanh's?
Hmm.
Oh, wow.
I know, right? It's hard to decide.
Yeah, I'm. To be totally honest, it probably depends on which book I'm reading of
Yeah.
his.
I mean,
Right
you're
now,
embodying it at that time.
right now I'm reading his book, How to Be Here, I believe is
Mm-hmm.
what it's called, and it's talking about being fully present. And in that book, he gets into this whole idea of how nothing ever lives or dies. Everything is just being. He shares a story of how we look at the green leaves, in the spring, and we think, oh, that tree's still alive. And then what do we call them in the fall? We say they're dead trees because they've lost, all their leaves. And he said, really, that leaf didn't die. That leaf is actually provided. That leaf provided sunshine and water for that tree. And so it's this whole idea that I think in modernism we've gotten to this idea that we either fear death or we welcome death, but we think that's the end point.
Mm-hmm.
And it's really revolutionizing to start thinking of yourself in a way that doesn't ever die.
Like a legacy?
You just continue in another way.
Mm-hmm.
So yeah, you could exchange the word for legacy. So the things I've taught my children will continue. The things I do and encourage and inspire people with will continue. We are a part of our ancestors, and our future, people will be a part of us. And so when you start looking at it in terms of, we used to call it the ripple effect back in the day, that everything you say and do impacts somebody. That really changes the landscape of thought, and it changes the landscape of how we actually impact people and relate to people. So Thich Nhat Hanh is just such a such a spirit of wisdom and life, and he's a guy that I'd love to have coffee with.
Yeah.
Ever in some form or fashion.
Maybe I'll get him on the podcast.
Yeah, something, because it just and we have all these figures. We have Jesus, and we have we could go on and on. Buddha, we could go Dalai Lama, we could go just on Nelson Mandela. You could go on and on and on of all these figures. But I think the one common thread, no matter what religious belief you come from or whatever figure you follow, you see the ideologies of peace and of acceptance and of living life to the fullest, of having fun, of joy. You just see all these ideologies that are the same. And so yeah.
So pivoting from the more metaphysical to the more technical, I guess you could say, is that some actual career that I was looking at and aimed for at one point. I didn't realize you had done it at this point until I did the research phase. Is tell me more about your life as an innovation consultant.
Yeah, so I thought I was being sneaky creative. I'm like, yeah, I don't want to say something that's totally asinine. Like sometimes you read people's bios and you get done reading it and you're like, I have no idea what you do. I don't understand what all that is.
Yeah, people read my bio, they still can't understand.
Yeah, or companies, a few years ago started coming up with all these cool names for their positions. Instead of CEO, it was like, master of whatever, I don't know. And so the innovation consultant idea was stemmed from the idea of helping people re-innovate the workplace or re-innovate their perspective. And I think it does take emotional and mental innovation. We often think of innovation in relation to physicality.
Like technology, for example.
Yeah, I'm an innovator. Well, what did you make? That's usually the response. And I want people to start opening their minds to innovation as far as an emotional investment. What innovation are you using with your team? What innovation are you using when you relate to people, when you interview people? What type of innovating things are you doing to reset your mind and reset your culture? And that's kind of why I came up with that, is I wanted people to start thinking differently in terms of innovation only being physical or scientific, that innovation can actually be very emotional and mentally based.
One of the reasons actually that I wanted you on the show, like after I went on your show, I decided, yeah, he's got a good choice, is that not only your polymathic kind of tendencies, but also the fact that you had that innovative philosophy, so to speak. And that's one thing that I thought would really help, because that's why I developed PolyInnovator, is to do the kind of the same thing, to innovate technology and ideology. Because it's not just a physical thing. People also confuse innovation with invention. It's not
Yes.
creating, it's bridging and
Yes.
making something new out of two other things.
Yes, exactly. Love it.
So then it also kind of talks a little bit more about how does innovation go into profitability if you want to go into business sense.
So I could almost promise any business owner that's having an issue with keeping people, that's having an issue with sales performance or any type of performance, I could almost promise them a 20% upgrade in profitability just by tweaking a few things, because I've just seen it over the years, over almost, over 2 decades of either working for someone, running a business, consulting with businesses. I've seen it. And what you see is, let's just take sales, for example. Salesperson is not active, not building new clientele, not out and about. Why? Because they really either haven't been taught, or they haven't been mentored, or they haven't been given permission. So I'm dealing with a situation right now where salespeople aren't trained. They're just given the keys to whatever and told to go sell. They're not provided support culturally. Managers are not trained. And that's where a lot of companies make a mistake, is they put people in positions because of tenure or because they know them, and not matching people. There's people I could hire off the street to run a company that could run companies better than some of the people that are running companies right now, just because of who they are. Yeah. And so, so I can walk into a business and go, what if I could upgrade your profitability by 20%? Everyone's going to say yes.
Right.
And the way we're going to do that is by measuring your culture. Let's gather some data. Let's talk to your people, and by better training, better cultural development, and hiring the right people and putting them in the right places. That alone, by osmosis, is going to up your profitability every single time.
So I want to go off of what you said there, but something that you kind of alluded to, I don't know if you did it on purpose or not, is the mastery element there. So after doing it for 2 decades, you have achieved a relatively either journeyman or masterman level of that particular skill area. And the same thing happened for me with swimming, where I could literally look at someone swimming. It's like, okay, you need to change that. You'll get a little bit more speed, a little bit more comfort, and change the mentality of behind it. Because a lot of people panic. That's the biggest issue, is people panic. And I think that same thing happens in other areas too. Like if you're trying to learn something new, you start panicking. Oh, I'm sucking at it. Like, no, you just need to try it again in a different way.
Practice.
So I wanted to actually, this is not even in the questions here. I wanted to talk about mastery a little bit, because I think that'd be interesting to talk about. I don't really have a specific question just yet. Do you have any thoughts?
So the interesting thing that happens when people go to work is they treat it like they're at work. The best thing to do is go to a bar on a Friday night. And you'll see Sarah, the secretary, who in the business world we call the gatekeeper, because if you don't get through the secretary, you're not going to get to anybody. Sarah, the secretary, has let her hair down and is on the dance floor dancing and is having a good time, and everyone loves being around her. She checks in at work at 8 o'clock on Monday morning, and everyone hates her and calls her a queen bee, because she's segregated real life with work. Is that Sarah's fault? No, it's the system's fault. Because what we've told Sarah is, you need to act this way, not use your personality. We hired you to do a job, just do the job. My proposal to people is, sure, Sarah's not going to act like she does at the bar on Friday night, but why not use a little bit of Sarah? What if Sarah answered the phone like she talks to people on Friday night, rather than answering? Exactly. That alone is going to change things in the world of your company, because now people are going to enjoy calling Sarah. They're going to call and ask for Sarah. I see it in the sales world all the time. People know how to talk to others, but then they get to the job and they haven't been given permission, or they haven't been given training, and now all of a sudden they lose their ever-loving mind. I used to say this when I worked in ministry with churches. You could take a room full of people who led a church, who are great business people. You put them Monday through Friday, they can build billion-dollar businesses. You put them in the church world and they lose every bit of common sense they've ever received. And I would challenge leaders on that constantly. It's like, why are we segregating this? And so when you talk about mastery, really what you're talking about is applying your already existing personality with experience.
Well, and it doesn't even just come down to personality, because sometimes personality needs to be cultivated like a skill, like learning how to communicate, that kind of thing. And what was interesting is I worked for Natural Grocers for about a year. And I've always been a cashier. I like being in front end, like talking to people.
Right.
That's what I'm good at. So I wanted to
Right.
do it. And the funny thing is, I ended up becoming more of the face of the store. I was there 4 days a week. So people saw me pretty often, at least in the time spans that I worked there. And I got in trouble a lot because I was too personable. And I often found myself getting in trouble for like saying something out of line or something like that. But 1 out of 10 times I would get in trouble. The other times I would actually make a strong connection with somebody. People would enjoy coming in saying hi. I actually got a job from making a connection with one of the customers there afterwards.
Yes.
So it's just interesting.
Yeah. So if you're in that situation, let's take that further. And I'm thinking from a leadership standpoint. Let's say you have a person that's the checking out people, cashier at another booth, and they have no personality, but they have quick hands. Like I've seen these cashiers that like just grab the groceries and they can scan it real quick and like really quick. Like it's like they're on a speed race. They never say anything to the customer, but man, they're rocking those out. You know what I mean? Like you've seen that before. So from a leadership perspective, it's like, okay, I see you with all this personality. I see JJ over there who's fast with his hands. Why do I have him on the cash wrap? Like, why do I not have him back there unloading the truck? And that's where businesses miss it is I think businesses do hire great people. I think the two mistakes they make is A, they don't develop them, which is what we're talking about. B, they don't put them in the right, there's no alignment. It's like you come in for an interview and we're hiring for the distribution center and you have a great personality. And instead of shifting things around and putting you with a great personality in sales, we stick you back unloading a truck.
Right.
And that's where businesses I mean, we see it every day. Every single day we experience a business and we're like, that person wasn't very good at their job. Well, as a leader, what I immediately think is they're not in the right position.
Well, and it's a matter of reorganization, Mitch. I totally agree. For example, just even this room that I'm in now, I have different furniture, the window there, the closet, the door, and you want to be able to rearrange the room in the most feng shui and flowing manner. And so I've gone through 50 iterations, but it's because I'm trying to find the most successful pathway to go through this room. Same thing goes to business organization. And going back off of the whole like cashier thing, just on a side note, I actually was one of those kids with the fast hands and I was able to scan really fast. In fact, there's a whole sheet of like codes when it comes to the produce. I actually had that memorized for the most part. And so I would see something in people's cards like, oh, you can just leave that there. I already have it scanned like 10 minutes ago. It's like, it's interesting how that can be efficient.
Well, you're a high performer and you're looking at those high performers and it's, but see that kind of goes back to what we're talking about is my next question would be, are you a great teacher? Because let's just say you are a high performer and you're a great teacher. Some high performers, and you see this in sports, very few great athletes make very good coaches. Most of the great coaches weren't very good athletes. And there's a reason for that. For really high performing athletes, it comes so natural to them. They have a hard time communicating what they're doing. For people that maybe weren't as athletic, they had to work on the mental side so they can become great communicators of it. Sometimes you get the person that's a great performer and a great teacher. Well, those are the ones that make your great CEOs, your great leaders. And so as a leader, I'm looking at you and I'm going, okay, can this guy teach? Like, that's my first question. Like when you were telling me that, I'm like, can he teach? Because if he can teach, I want to pay him $20,000 a year more and put him in management.
If anyone's listening, I've taught people for over a decade now.
Yeah, you have. And knowing your experience, you are. And so,
I think
that's where leaders miss it. That's really where we miss it. And so then when a leader tells me, Mitch, I can't keep great people, I can't find great people, my first question always is, well, I want to see who's on your team now, because my guess is you have great people sitting in your presence and you just don't know it.
Yeah.
And I think leaders often don't know how to know it. They're ignorant of what to look for.
Well, Mitch, this is an interview about you, not myself. So I'm going to stop talking about myself here. But one thing I will ask you as well is like, how does a person or a company work on leadership and cultural development in that way then?
First of all, I think it takes a lot of honesty, self-honesty. I think I tell leaders often, and I learned this the hard way. When you have a problem in your company, the first place you go is to the bathroom and look in the mirror. That's the first place you go. You don't blame anyone else. You don't put the responsibility on anyone. And I don't care what size company you're running. If your company has an issue, go to the bathroom, look in the mirror, figure that out. And I think every leader needs to work on self and have a lot of honesty with self and take a lot of inventory. The second thing is equally value is feedback from your team. Please don't do it anonymously. That's telling your people that you really don't care what they say. You need to have enough communication with your team that you can get honest feedback. How is our leadership? How are we doing in developing you? What else do you need? What do you not understand? And don't lash out. Just simply take that honest feedback, talk with your people, and have an open conversation. So we'll call that communication. So I think the first thing is honesty, vulnerability with self. I think the next thing is true, open, honest communication. And then the third thing is implementation. I've seen leaders constantly take good, open, honest feedback and they never do anything with it. And so then time goes by and they lose credibility with their people because their people gave honest feedback, but they never saw action. And if you don't follow up honest feedback with action, you're going to lose all credibility with your people. Those to me are the three main beginning points with developing leadership. Now, I'll talk about self-development, reading books constantly, listening to great podcasts like yours constantly.
Or yours.
Those things, those self-growth things have to continually be taking place.
Well, Mitch, and we talked about Gary Vee earlier as well, and he has that kind of same philosophy when it comes to having that interpersonal relation. And I remember watching one video. He doesn't talk about it very much, but he literally, at least for as best he can, considering his companies are growing so big now, but he tried to meet with every single employee, at least for a couple minutes at a time, to see how can I help you? What are you trying to work on? What's the problem with the company? Like, how can we get this better? And that just dramatically changed the atmosphere of the company culture.
Yeah, and you're right. He's to the volume now; it's getting almost impossible. But I have had the fortune of meeting and conversing with a few people on his team, and they say, they still every once in a while see him. They definitely still see people that are directly tied to him, and so he is a really great example of being in the middle. He's a guy that gets his hands dirty. He is not afraid to get his hands dirty. And that's something else I've been really passionate about telling leaders about. I'm like, if you're running a clothing store, you better be out folding jeans. Yeah. If you're running a car sales auto group, you better be out helping sell cars. Like, you can't be, and I know some companies, we're talking major companies, but I love that show Undercover Boss. Yeah. And I think what those leaders recognize is, oh my gosh, A, I didn't know these problems were happening. B, my people really want to see me. They want to know the human side of me. A few weeks ago, about a month ago, I had a guy on my show. His name is Jude Charles. And Jude's expertise is taking the human story of business leaders and entrepreneurs and telling that side of the story that people don't know. And he has story after story after story about how that's impacted companies for the good, just like Undercover Boss. So just put that, don't wait on Undercover Boss, like put that into real life. They've given you the pattern. Just go do it.
And go disrupt it, really, too. And I know that, like, Elon Musk, for example, has gotten in a lot of hot water in recent years. He likes to really play with fire a lot. But one thing you can really admire about him is dedication. He will literally go in there and start working on the rocket ships, like hands-on. He taught himself rocket science, literally, and went in there and started doing it.
Yeah, I'm a sports guy, so I love watching sports. And I love when a professional, especially a professional coach or owner, and I'll mention Mark Cuban again. I don't know why today he's on my mind for some weird reason, but I'm not a Mavericks fan. But it was funny when he first bought the team, everyone gave him flack for going to the practices and actually scrimmaging.
Yeah.
And I'm like, no, that's
like court.
Yeah, that's what I want with my owner. Like, that's awesome. And so I think there are those leaders out there that are, kind of creating a shift and disrupting the whole system.
Well, I remember hearing a story about him, how, like, he would just sit on I didn't hear about him doing the scrimmaging. I would just hear about him sitting on the court during the games, like right at the bottom at the bench down there. Right. And they're like, the people who was kind of his boss in a way, the board or whatever, like, you can't be doing that. Right. And each time you do it, we're going to charge you $100,000 in a fee. Yeah. And he's like, okay, then I'll just keep paying the fee. Yeah. Like, okay. That's
exactly right. Yeah. Yeah.
So something I ask all my guests, we talk a lot about, like, polymathy and overall divergent kind of mindsets, is what is a polymath to you?
Yeah, I've always been labeled a Renaissance man. Like, I get that quite a bit, and I have, pretty much my whole adult life. I think people see someone with a variety of interests and talents and immediately go, ooh, that's different.
Yeah, or unfocused in a way.
Yes, yeah. Sometimes it can be a negative connotation, and so to me, that's exactly what, when we're talking about a polymath, we're talking about someone that has a variety of passions, a variety of interests, a variety of skill sets. And what's funny is a lot of times someone that doesn't have that ability will look at it and go, it's unfocused, or how does that all relate? Sometimes I feel that way myself, I mean, to be honest, but it is all interrelational, just because it's all a part of our story and it's how we're wired. So I've kind of gotten that my whole life. Man, Mitch, you're a Renaissance man. I'm like, I'm just me. Like, call it, label it what you want. I'm just who I am. And I think that's really says a lot about what, about that question, what is a polymath? I just think it's someone that has those interests and they have those, the mindset of multiplicity and just expanding and manifesting themselves in a variety of ways.
I love it. Every time I ask that question, I'm always in awe. And I actually got a little bit emotional there. I was thinking about how there's a lot of times when these content creators like Gary Vee or Mark Cuban and even these other people who are very famous are like, if you want something done, then go create it. And I didn't even realize when I started having guests that what was going to happen from that, and how
Right.
I started finding more polymathic people like you, or polymaths in general, or aspiring polymaths in general. Because I mean, you can't really be polymath until you're at a high level in many areas.
Right.
So I don't even consider myself one. But it's
Right.
interesting how no one else is really making any content about it. There's people who are doing Polymath Playground or Project Polymath. There's people who are trying to, and I see that they're growing. I love it. But this is actually starting to grow into that series of like finding those polymaths
Right.
and finding those
Right.
jack of all trades.
Yeah.
Yeah, I love it. Thank
That's
you.
awesome. Awesome.
So something we kind of share that affinity towards is the embetterment, empowerment of humanity. So one of my questions I really want to make sure we get in today is, how can we shift humanity towards a brighter future?
Be the future.
Be the future. What do you mean?
I think the greatest way to create the future is to be what you see happening in the future. So if we're going to say, how can we better humanity? I think it's being the betterment within yourself now. And when we can be the betterment one at a time, it's one step at a time. It's one word at a time. It's one podcast at a time. It's one at a time. And the more, again, we're talking about multiplicity, the more you can get people doing it one at a time, being the future that we want. I actually tweeted something yesterday that sometimes I think of things and I'm like, yeah, I better make a note of that. And I've started making my tweets notes.
Yeah. Same. I love
and it. So I want to get it right. It was just a thought that hit me. And the thought was, for it is within the revolution that we find a future much brighter than our minds have conceived. And so it's in that revolution, whether it's the revolution of self, whether it's the revolution of internalizing and taking that and manifesting it out, whether it's the revolution of what's happening now, it's within that revolution, that blood, that gore, that fight, that we become the future we're desiring. And so it's one step at a time. It's not mass changes. I think that's where people mess it up.
Yeah.
People, I want mass change. It's not mass changes. It's one at a time.
Well, and then even on top of that too, it's the, like you said, being that future in the moment. So having a self-awareness of being like, am I in a distressed state, or am I in a lower state than I should be, and trying to change that consciously by being just better in general. And so one thing you're kind of mentioning earlier before the show is that, like, or maybe at the beginning, is that we're both kind of tired, not in the right mindset.
Right,
you kind of have that actor mindset where you're able to flip on the switch and be better than you might normally be in that current state.
Yeah, and I really learned that in athletics and in sports, and you can learn it in a variety of ways. But I used to tell my band all the time, no matter what, we're professional. No matter what, whether we're having a bad day, whether we're depressed, whether our van broke down, whether no one showed up, whether 500, it doesn't matter. No matter what, you're professional. And I really learned that playing sports. I learned that to do your part as a team, to play your role, you have to show up, period, no ifs, ands, or buts. If you have the flu, you have the flu. You got to show up. And I think there's something to that. Now, the negative to that is if we do that over and over and over and over, we start dealing with a fake sense of self. And I think that's where you see a lot of artists and creatives have this hard time of dealing with the shadow self, because they're so used to being lights, camera, action, that they get wrapped up into that and forget there's a real self that exists. My proposal is that we don't segregate any of it, that we're not really acting or we're not really playing. What we're just doing is existing. And when we can just exist, then that levels all these distresses and stuff that we can have.
Choosing to exist at a higher level.
Yes.
Yeah.
Yes. Yeah.
This kind of, it's similar, but not necessarily the same kind of topic, so to speak. But you've talked about on your online presence, the not being selfish with knowledge, or in any sense of hiding behind many people a paywall, so to speak. How do you prefer to provide value of knowledge then?
Right. And I struggle with that, to be honest. I believe first and foremost that knowledge exists already. It's ours to capture. I had a guy explain it to me one time in the form of money. He said, money is floating all around you. All you have to do is reach up and grab it.
Mm-hmm.
And I think knowledge is the same. And we all have different perspectives. And that's why I think knowledge at its fundamental level should be free, because really I'm not offering anything new. I'm just offering a varied perspective on what already exists.
A remix or a different take.
Yeah, I do struggle. I heard a story a long time ago. A friend of mine told me this, and he said, actually what happened is I'd come out with a new CD, and I said, I just want to give you one. He goes, no, I'm not taking it for free. I'm paying you for it. Yeah. And I just, what he explained to me was the culture of actually the Jewish people is we have this very racial term that people use about bargaining with people using Jewish people. I won't say it because I don't want to, but actually the idea came from is that Jewish people in their culture were so proud of their product because they believed that their creator gave them the ability to do it. So they held a high value to it. So the idea of bartering and using that slang phrase came from Jews weren't going to give you a discount because they firmly believed in what they'd created. So I struggle with this whole idea of content because I do believe knowledge is free, but I also believe there is a value system. And so, and you find that in consulting, you know, there's times that I've lost consulting jobs because I've priced myself too cheap. Because oftentimes people equate value with money. And so they go, oh, you're only going to charge us $10,000 for a consulting fee? Everyone else is charging us 20. No, you must not know what you're doing. That's a real struggle for me. It honestly, and I think it is for a lot of people.
I think being upfront about that too would help a lot, but that's hard to do. It's hard because, like, for example, I teach swim lessons, like I mentioned earlier, and there was a client that lived really far away, and I was trying to figure out how to calculate the gas mileage and making sure it's worth it. And they just literally just started paying me more for it, and I'm super grateful about that. And they were really open to my closed offness, like you in this case. They were helpful in that case, but like if they weren't, I would be kind of screwed over in that sense. That kind of also reminds me of the whole SEO thing we were talking about earlier, where I've done a lot of research into that, and I have this habit of being overly didactic, and so like I wanted to start teaching you about it and trying to get you to do a little bit more, so that way you weren't going behind or something like that. So like you were saying how all the money is just right there for the taking. I feel that like if by expanding your content and your show and that kind of thing and trying to make the reach as far as possible using SEO or some other purpose, you can have more value out of it.
Cool.
So we can talk more about that later, but that actually kind of brings me into the whole idea
off the record.
yeah. But this kind of also transitions into the whole question I want to talk to you about too, is what started Mitch Gray Media.
Mitch Gray Media was kind of born out of business cards, to be honest. So I had this whole thing, man. At one point, it was probably 5 or 6 years ago. So I had my music stuff going. My new book had just released. I was doing some speaking. I was doing my public health work. I was just doing all this stuff. And I was like, I'm really tired of carrying around all these business cards because I had a business card for everything that I was doing.
Oh no!
Like, this is too much. It's wasteful. I never carry them with me anyway, so I'm wasting money. And so the Mitch Gray Media kind of became this umbrella of it looked more professional. I could push people to the same email, same phone number, and I didn't have to disintegrate or dilute all of my information. And so honestly, Mitch Gray Media was born out of the pain of having so many business cards. And so it's just kind of the umbrella idea that honestly, it's kind of a polymathic idea in a way that it's an umbrella that all these things live and breathe. Yeah.
It's your PolyInnovator in a way. It's your personal brand. And I think that's really helpful, especially for polymathic people. But I also think that just entrepreneurs in general have polymathic tendencies, I've mentioned before. And I think that because of that, they often have a hard time being successful because they can't brand themselves well. And then once you find that, like, oh, I could be a polymathic personal brand, which I might need to coin that.
But you should. Yeah, TM that right away.
And so and that Mitch Gray Media ended up being your polymathic personal brand. So what inspired you then, besides that call to action, like, hey, I don't like carrying all these cards, what inspired you behind the media aspect of creating all of that?
Well, I mean, a lot of my stuff was kind of being viewed as media per se. Social media is media. YouTube is media. And then, when I was booking whether it was speaking or consulting or band stuff, it just had a much more larger presence for someone to go, for a venue to go, oh, Mitch Gray Media called. I mean, there is a psychological aspect to all of that. And the psychological aspect is I can say, hey, this is Mitch Gray, or I can say, hey, this is Mitch Gray Media. And the response you get is so much different. And I definitely wanted to brand my name. That's why I changed to the Mitch Gray Show. The show before that was called Soul Food for the Chicken, which I want to come back to at some point. I still think that's kind of clever.
You can almost make it as a series too. You don't have to have
exactly.
the show like a sub-series.
I'm going to do a book on that someday, but and so I changed it to the Mitch Gray Show because I was in a rebranding phase of like, okay, my brand presence is my name and who I am. And so that's kind of where the whole Mitch Gray Media was kind of formed. Yeah.
I love that. And you kind of alluded to that writing and the book and whatnot. What's coming up next for Mitch Gray Media?
Good question. So we've obviously got the podcast, The Mitch Gray Show, that people can subscribe to anywhere or go to the YouTube channel, Mitch Gray Media. I am working on a new book. To be totally honest, I'm probably working on 2 new books right now. I kind of tend to have a lot of irons rolling. The one I'm trying to finish, I wanted to finish it by July, not going to happen. So by the end of the year is how to hire and keep great people. I think it's going to be more interactive to really get leaders to understand a better interview process, a better prospecting process, a better development process. We're also taking new clients for Shift Consulting. People can visit our website there, shift.llc. I'm writing for quite a few publications. In the spring, I got into 4 major publications, and we have a couple of more leadership articles. Thanks. Yeah, that was a big deal for me because I was like, you do all these things and you're like, I'm just beating my head against the wall, and to finally get some breakthrough. It's nice. I really want to up my video content before the show, specifically catered toward leadership. Before the show, we were kind of both talking about working a lot, and I've just been working a lot, and so you have to balance your energy output. And so that's what I'm focused on right now. But yeah, so a new book, probably another new one to follow up. Obviously the podcast, and then content and publications, and on the Shift website. And I actually do have a personal website, mitchgray.me. We're rebuilding that website. It's going to be very blog oriented, very video oriented. But on the Shift website, we do have a blog on there as well, with quite a bit of material on it that is, I think, very useful. So
awesome.
Yeah.
So something that I actually was picking up earlier when you were saying that you focus a lot on the spirituality and emotional side, that came in mind of the 4 pillars philosophy that I've been cultivating, where there's the mind, body, spirit, and emotions. And a lot of times I see people coming from the other end, where they focus on a lot of physical development or mental development or both, but they often neglect the other 2. And it's interesting how you're coming from the other way. So what are your thoughts on that philosophy?
So first of all, I want to get you back on my show so we can talk specifically about that, because on the show that we recorded before that's not out yet, we didn't get there, and I want to get there with you. But I have this. Yeah. This will be a teaser. I have this saying that I didn't originate. I actually stole it from a guy named Rob Bell, but his saying is everything is spiritual. And when you really start to dissect it, everything is based on the spirit of the being. And then you go through all the great, the Zig Ziglars and all the great motivational speakers of the world, that everything is mindset. Kind of the way I look at it, if I was going to hierarchy those, I would go spiritual, mental, emotional. I think everything stems from the spiritual aspect of humanity, of the world. That's where we get our energy levels. We call them the chakras, we call them alignment, whatever. And when you can get that, pretty aligned, that greatly impacts mental capacity.
Yeah.
When you can get mental capacity aligned, that immediately impacts emotional capacity.
And physical.
And and then to me, physical is the last, because if you can get all of that right, a person's going to want to eat better. A person is going to want to take care of themselves. I made a comment the other day. Someone said, "You're going to the gym again?" I'm like, "Yeah, I've only got one body. If I don't take care of it." And they were like, "What?" And so people they either only focus on physical or are so shallow on the physical, they're really not focused on any of it.
Yeah.
So I just always believed if you can get the spirit aligned, you're going to feed the mind, you're going to feed the emotions. And I actually look at the physical part of it as the manifestation of all of that. So if you're actually healthy within those areas, the physical part is going to naturally come, because I want to feel good. I want my body to feel good. And that feeds all of what's happening. So I've never looked at it any other way. I really haven't.
Well, and I don't know if this is the polymathic mindset, but I've always tried to see them as equal. You know what I mean? Trying to keep them as equal plane. I love how you saw it from the top down. I think it's a really good way of approaching it. And we have to talk more about that on your show. And I might even write a blog post about that, your version of it, because I think that having the body as a manifestation, as kind of a happenstance of all the other stuff you're working on, is a very beautiful concept, because all these pillars interact with each other and impact each other. And that's the real kind of thing that I always try to mention, is that they're very interconnected. If you work on one, it's going to positively or negatively impact the other ones. And so a lot of neglect happens because they neglect one, like the body or the mind or spirituality. And I think that's what's interesting, is that when I've talked about the 4 pillars, I've often gone from the other end of your tower, where I've talked about just kind of snowballing it. So not necessarily manifesting, but more of just trying to focus on progress. I've always been progress. So I really like how you were thinking about it in the opposite direction. That helps expand it.
I probably come from that because of my passion for, you know, what I used to call ministry, for helping people spiritually. That's my bend. I'm very bent toward the spiritual aspect of life, and what I've seen, tying that in with my mental health experience, and, you know, helping a lot of people overcome drug addictions and everything. I've seen a lot of people that were physically fit, but mentally and spiritually depleted. It's amazing what happens when they connected the bridge between spirituality, mentality, and then what happens physically. Conversely, I've seen a lot of people who were physically unfit and spiritually crippled. They shifted the spirituality, which shifted the mindset, which all of a sudden they lose 50 pounds, and they, you know what I mean? Like, it's almost like when we deal with just the surface, everything else doesn't necessarily progress, to use your word. When we deal with the deep part of the iceberg, everything else progresses. And so I don't think there's a right or wrong. I actually take that back. I think there is. I think the right and wrong comes in when we don't take care of any of it. But I think the formation of thought, there's no right or wrong. My natural bend has always been, how are you spiritually, energetically, and then we can deal with everything else.
But I love that. That's actually one reason why I wanted to talk to you about it, because I could sense that you're the more spiritual pillar, being more of your powerful one, and it's kind of the leader for you and your particular 4 pillars development. And I think that depending on how you are as a person, I think that affects that. But I also think that what's the word I'm looking for? I think that with mental, you get the grit of mental acuity through the physical development. So a lot of times people actually get mentally stronger through the physical exercise, but then they also get a little bit more emotionally aligned, because their emotions start happening, becoming more happy, like with endorphins. And then you can kind of get that, okay, you have mental strength, and then you have the happiness, which can lead into meditation, which can lead into a deeper spiritual self. So that's why I saw them the other end. But I love how with your spirituality, Mitch, you're able to incorporate all 4 pillars into one system by using that spirituality as a basis.
And I also think, I think this all directly ties back to passion. Your passion tends to be more toward the physical side. My passion tends to be more toward the spiritual side. You alluded to, we kind of all have our special pillars that we like to see. And I actually think that's DNA. I don't think I could ever be totally sold out on the idea of physicality coming first. That's why, you know, you alluded to, you think they're all equal. And I actually agree with that. Even though I see them a little bit as a hierarchy in my mind, I think they are, you know, I think you have to have all to have the best of all. I think when one of them is failing short, they're all going to struggle. And so, you know, I think that does definitely tie to the passion of, if you're working with someone who is a physical trainer, or if you're working with someone who's a psychologist, the psychologist is probably going to say mental capacities needs to come first, because the mind guides everything else. That's not wrong. And that's what I love about that, is there really isn't a right or a wrong. The only right is to continuously be working on them.
Yeah. Well, and I think that there's a matter of the polymath aspect too, that we're both employing there, where we can see that they're all important, how they're all connected. But there's also a matter of focus too. You can't really focus on all of them at once. If you focus on one, whether it's body, spirit, mind, or body, or mind, body, spirit, emotions, regardless of which one you're choosing, there's a matter of focus on building up one, then you can work on another one, or focus on building up one a lot, and then trying to translate it to the other ones.
Yes, totally. And I do believe when you feed one of them, and I've had to do this in dealing with depression. There's sometimes that I just have to make sure I go to the gym. I have to make sure I go for my walk. So I do believe when you feed one of them, you are actually feeding all of them. I don't know that they're isolated. And I think that's where that alignment comes in. If you study the chakras, they're not isolated. They're all kind of unified together. And so if you're neglecting one, you're going to neglect all. If you're feeding one, you're going to feed all.
True. And if we want to just slightly go on the chakras a tiny bit, there's the 4 yogas, which a lot of chakras are based off of, which are very reminiscent of the 4 pillars.
Yes.
And pivoting just a little bit, because we're going to have to wrap up here soon, but one thing I want to get in today is that you've made 250 episodes. You said you've been spending years on the podcast.
Yeah.
How has that been for you, and where can people find you?
Yeah, so I started a podcast. It was about 5 years ago, maybe 6 now, because I wasn't preaching anymore. And it was my outlet. I was like, I got to scratch the itch, and so I started podcasting, and I loved it. And actually, for the first year, I did a podcast every single week. Every single week I did a podcast. And I had a lady tell me, she's like, that's too much. You're never going to sustain that. I'm like, I don't care at this point. I'm just doing it because I want to. She was right.
Yeah. But I mean, you did it for a year.
I loved it. Yeah. I was like, hey, I prepared a sermon. I did for 5 years. I prepared 3 sermons every week. I can do this. Yeah. So yeah, I loved it. And then, like I said, a couple of years ago, we rebranded to the Mitch Gray Show, and I really love having guests. That's where the show has evolved. It's evolved really more into, rather than me sharing just my perspective, the idea of having people on and having this dialogue like we're having. And I think you asked a question earlier, what can we do to make humanity, better in the future? I think it's dialogue. I think it's communication. And so that's one reason I wanted to have guests on the show. The Mitch Gray Show, Gray, anywhere you listen to podcasts for the most part, subscribe and grab it. And then we also show all of our stuff on the YouTube channel as well, the video version. So which I really, we don't get a ton of hits on that, but I just like people having the option. We get quite a few. Sometimes we'll have 30 views on an episode. Sometimes it'll be 10. It just depends. And I think it depends on the person. Dave is an example. He has promoted the heck out of the video side of it. And so, which I like, it's kind of a cool thing. So,
well, and one thing I've done as a teacher and as a content creator is that there's a lot of people who want to have their own, like everyone's different when it comes to learning. Some people are auditory, some people are visual, some people are kinesthetic. And so I try to incorporate that as much as possible in the content I create, whether it's a slideshow, video, podcast, whatever it may be. So I love how you are doing the videos as well. That's actually how Lewis Howes grew, because he started doing it on YouTube.
The video, I've learned something that I haven't stepped into yet, but I want to. I had a lady on a few weeks ago. Her name is Helen Rankin. She works for a company called Swag Up. And they actually take all of their podcasts and turn them into blogs. There's like a couple of transcribing programs out there that I've never used. And so I'm talking to her about kind of how to teach me what to do, because I think that would be another, formation of what you're talking about, to turn those into blogs would be a really cool idea. I know people are doing it. I've never done it. So we'll see.
We can talk about that afterwards. I have a lot of ideas about that. Content repurposing is one of my specialties. So people can find you at mitchgray.com.
So one of my websites is mitchgray.me.
Yeah.
My other website is shift.llc.
There we go.
For the consulting. And then social media, Gray Media, Gray. That's Twitter, Instagram, Facebook for now.
Yeah, I'll make sure I have links in the description.
But yeah, cool.
That makes it easier for you and everybody.
And then I'm on LinkedIn too, but I honestly don't know what. I haven't figured out LinkedIn, to be honest.
Maybe I'll help you with that too. So one last thing is that I like to ask, what is the call to action for the audience today? Whether it's manifesting dreams, spiritual pillar, what do you think?
I'm going to relate it to the culture that America is in right now. And I think the rest of the world, actually, I think the call to action right now is self-reflection. I think it's taking inventory of how you have viewed the world to date. And when we can really sit with that self-reflection and figure out what does life look like for me? What have my experiences been? And what do I want to experience moving forward? That will actually start manifesting itself in your behavior toward others and of others. So I think self-reflection is huge right now. And it doesn't matter whether you're looking at the TV screen, watching the news, or you're a CEO going to build a company, or whatever, an entrepreneur, I don't care. Self-reflection, I think, is where the magic is going to lie moving forward, both in close proximity and further out.
Love it, Mitch. Thank you. Yeah. Thanks for coming on the show. And
Thank you, man. It was a blast as usual.
Yeah, and I'm looking forward to coming on your show again to talk about the 4 pillars.
Yes, yes, yes.